All right. Oh, we're live. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Erickson. In the center of the screen is a person named Niels Pflaeging, and to the far left, not ideologically, but just kind of on the far left of your screen, is author and time orientation expert Allen Bluedorn. Allen, welcome to the space of BetaCodex Live, where we talk about all sorts of wonderful things related to freedom and joy at work. So.
Well, thank
I
you.
would.
Happy to be
You're
here.
welcome. So we're
Thank you
happy
for
to have
accepting
you.
our invitation, right? First of all,
Yeah.
thank you. But maybe a word. When I read this book by Allen Bluedorn, our guest today, I thought we just have to invite this guy. Does he exist? Where is he? I quickly figured out that you are retired, Allen.
Yes.
But you answered right away when I sent an email to you, and here we are. We can talk about your amazing book, The Human Organization of Time. So thank you for making this happen.
I have to chuckle a little bit, your point about does he exist? Because I was just reminded of something. My administrative assistant, way back when I was an associate dean in my college of business, he and I got along very well, and we've become long-term friends. But back then, he had three boys of various ages growing up, and the youngest one always denied that I existed.
Yes. Yes. Why did he do that? Why did he deny your existence?
Well, he had never seen me in person. He'd only heard his father talk about me.
Yes.
And so I guess he thought I was like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or something like that.
I have a client, I'm sitting at one of my clients, Pratke, here in Germany. And when I told them, I sometimes tell them about great people, like your book, for example, they have it as well. And I worked with a guy, Ernst Weichselbaum from Austria, and we did a book with quotes of Taiichi Ono, the Japanese architect of the Toyota production system. And one day, that's the book. And one day I mentioned to them, okay, at Toyota, there was this guy called Shigeo Shingo who invented fast switching of equipments and so on. And my client looked at me and said, but you're making up that guy, right? And he said, now I start to believe that none of these people that you always mention really exists.
The man, the myth, the legend, the mystery, the social construction of individual humans.
Of people, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But you are real, and we are pleased to find that you are real. We are meeting for the first time now, talking for the first time. All our setup for this session today was by writing, so it's delightful to have you, Allen. We want to talk about your book mainly, but maybe do you want to? Yes, Ryan, you want to?
Oh, I was going to say, your opening riff. I would say I would love to hear kind of your journey to who you are now, how you got to be there. That was one thing,
and why you wrote this book.
Well. Why you wrote the book, and then I would love to go into what is like kind of the core piece of it is the issue. What is polychronicity, and why is that important?
Wait. Let's not mix polychronicity into the opening. There's so many
that would be the coda of the tune we're talking about. So yeah, Allen, please regale us with the story of you and how the book came about.
And when we get to talking about polychronicity, there is a reason why I really smiled broadly when you mentioned it here. And so when we get there, if I don't remember it on my own, please prompt me. Why did you smile at the beginning of our talk this way?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So how did I get to? Who am I, and how did I come to be, or something like that?
Who are you? Why are you here? What do you want? Kind of thing. Yes.
Okay.
You are an academic, a real researcher.
Yeah. How did I get into academics?
Yeah.
Well, as best I can recall, I have read science fiction all my life.
That's interesting. It's not in the book. Interesting.
No. And in fact, that's something I've really gotten back in. I've never stopped, but I probably have read more so far this year than I've ever read in a single year in my life. I've really caught up on a lot of the good stuff. And but back, so late elementary school, junior high, high school, and reading about it, often the prominent figures were professors, or at least people with PhDs or something like that, the physicists or astronomers or so forth. And so that's kind of a little bit of a role model that those people existed. And there is a profession that way. And of course, going through school, you learn about that and everything. And so somewhere along the way, I decided I wanted to get a PhD. That came first, thinking about that. And then getting into undergraduate school, I went to the University of Iowa. Getting into undergraduate school, I mean, I had a little bit of flirting with other ideas, but really came back to that very quickly. And then I ended up staying at Iowa for a master's degree. My undergraduate was sociology. My master's was anthropology. And then PhD, again at Iowa, all back to sociology. And why did I do everything at Iowa, which at least in the United States, that is not the typical pattern. You usually get your doctorate at a different place than where you got your undergraduate. And for me, there's a very famous book that was written, I think it's copyrighted in the early 1960s, called The Sociological Imagination by a sociologist named C. Wright Mills. And he defined the sociological imagination as the ability to see the intersection of biography and history.
Yes.
And in my case, that's how I came to get the two graduate degrees at Iowa, because I graduated in 1971 from undergraduate school, and I was also, I'd gone through Army ROTC at the time. That in the U.S. is just a training program for people to go into the military. There are Navy and Air Force and versions of that too. And so I was commissioned to second lieutenant, and I figured I'd be in the Army for 2 years then that way. That was the commitment back then. However, there was a little thing called the Vietnam War going on at that time. And the powers that be had decided we were going to withdraw from Vietnam. And that process had begun, and was begun in a very rapid fashion. Tens of thousands of American military personnel were coming home, certainly every year, if not every month. And suddenly you've got this graduating class of second lieutenants all over the country from Army ROTC programs. But the Army doesn't need thousands of brand new second lieutenants. Yes. And so 6 weeks before graduation and commissioning, all across the country that particular year, we were basically told, you're not going to be with us for 2 years. You're going to be with us for 3 months for more training, and that's it. Well, when we found out about that in late April that year, that was way past when you applied to graduate schools and everything. And so
so you stayed on.
I didn't know what to do. I had taken the graduate record exam, figuring that'll be stored how I did on that. So when I get out of the Army, then I can go to school. And I just jumped in as almost just a general graduate student at Iowa. And by the fall, because I thought I wanted to do something different than sociology, I thought I wanted to become a physical anthropologist. And I still remember my senior year in high school, this National Geographic special on TV called Dr. Leakey and the Donna Man. And the way they presented that, I was just fascinated with that. And as part of sociology, you were required to take the general anthropology course. And again, I picked up on that. And it ended up getting admitted to the regular anthro program. Yes. Got through with that. And by the time I got through, I figured I didn't want to do that. And just decided, well, I want to become an academic. I seemed to be pretty decent at sociology, and I jumped back into sociology, and that's how that happened. Now, if we want to fast forward to how did I come to time as a topic?
Yes.
Yes.
This is going to sound apocryphal, but this is the God's truth, if you will, on this. My advisor for the PhD studied employee turnover, people quitting their jobs, things like that. Well, the normal thing to do is you do your dissertation in the general area that your doctoral advisor is interested in and has done work in and so forth. So I did that. And then I got my first job in the business school at Penn State because my specialty in sociology was, call it complex organizations, or most people call it organization theory. That overlaps a lot with an area of management scholarship. And so that's how I got into the management department side of thing. Okay. But given the timing and to get tenure, you've got 6 years to put together your record, and it's really only about 5 1/3 because they make the decision starting early in your 6th year. You better stay with what you did your dissertation on. And so I did turnover research and everything. And at a certain point, we moved from Penn State to the University of Missouri here. And in a year or two, I got tenure here. And okay, I've got tenure. That's the big deal. It was also slightly disappointing because nothing else changed in my life. I had tenure now. I didn't have to worry about that, but everything else was the same. The good was the good. The not so good was not so good. And so that was a big surprise. I thought, I was entering Valhalla or something like that, but that wasn't the way that worked. And I still remember April, May, towards the end of the year, where the decision was made that I'd got tenure and everything. I was thinking, I don't want to do turnover research anymore. I didn't find it intellectually fascinating or interesting. You discover that people with low job satisfaction tend to quit their jobs more than people with high job satisfaction. Yes. Yes. I think we knew that. We didn't need any research to discover that.
It was too obvious for you.
So I was thinking, I had to do it for, if you will, logistical reasons, just given the way the whole system works. But now I'm free to choose. What do I want to do? And I was just sitting there. I went home for lunch. I was there by myself and sitting in the living room. What would I like to study? And it just popped into my head, time. Mm-hmm. I don't know where it came from. Maybe the science fiction a little, or maybe I don't know where it came from, but I knew because I wanted to pick a topic that hadn't been researched to death.
Yes,
which was what turnover had been.
Yes,
and so I was thinking, I can't think of anything I've seen in management about time.
Yes,
and then it's almost like this was meant to be. Because right down the hallway from me was a fellow in our Department of Public Administration named Bob Denhart. And I happened to mention this to him one day, that this is what I'm going to start looking into. Well, he had done a fair amount of reading in that area. Mm-hmm. And there certainly was some coverage in the social sciences. And he gave me a list of a half dozen books or so, including Edward Hall's The Dance of Life. Yes. And things like that. Yes. And so that's how I got going on it.
So that must have happened in the 80s or 90s. When was that?
Let's see. Yes, this would have happened. I made the transition mid 80s.
Yeah. The book was published, just to give our listeners and those who watch a little bit of context, the book was published in 2002.
Right.
So a bit afterwards, and just to give a little bit of context about the book is so that everybody who doesn't have it, that it was published by Stanford University Press, by the way. It's still in print. We clarified that a few weeks ago. It's still in print. It's not so hard to get by the book, to get your hands on the book. But something that people should know, I think, about it is it's not so thick, but it has like 300 pages or something. 350, but it is very dense. It's packed with references. I think there's so many great quotes, right, Ryan? It's overwhelming. It's an overwhelming, dense, highly educated. I told you this before we started the session officially, Alan. Reading the book and rereading it today, I always feel like this man has a really great mind. He's a true intellectual, and he dares to think about the non-obvious and connect the dots. And so it's an amazing book. So rich, in detail, so many topics. It's a little bit overwhelming too, I think. From what you just told us, I feel that if you shifted to the topic in the 1980s, so you spent maybe 20 years to get to the point of writing the book, right?
Right.
I saw that.
Right. It was probably about 83 or so, 82, 83, somewhere in there where I made that decision.
Okay.
And then,
20 years.
That took a while to ramp up a little bit. Discovered that there was something called the International Society for the Study of Time.
Oh.
And it's multidisciplinary or cross-disciplinary, however you think it that way. Yeah. Philosophers, literature people, physicists, some social scientists in it.
You were part of this society, of this group?
I joined it. Mm-hmm. It's not a large group, It probably has a total I don't know if it still exists or not, but at the time, it seemed like it had 200-300 members, something like that, completely international.
Yeah,
it really wasn't a U.S.-based thing.
I imagine that Barbara Adam might have been part of that group.
Oh, Barbara. Yeah, I know Barbara.
Yes, she appears in the book as well, and she's also brilliant, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. People like Barbara would be there. And so the first thing I wrote for it and attended a meeting that they had out at Totnes in southwestern England, and presented the paper there and everything, and it eventually got published in a journal back here in the U.S. But I also invited the founder, J.T. Frazier, who has been deceased now for many years, to come to University of Missouri and give a talk on time, because he's very broad-based too. Although his basis is in physics and philosophy, and he's not as strong as he gets to the behavioral and social sciences. I'll put it that way.
Yes.
But got going there, and then kind of after that, 1988, Bob Denhart and I, working together, did a major review piece about time and organizations, and published that, and that really got me going there then. But that's kind of the background. And then for the next 12 years or so, the whole emphasis was on writing articles. And here a little bit of the sociology of academia. Some disciplines are refereed article based.
Yes.
Other disciplines are monograph and book based.
Yes.
And in some, there's a mix.
Yes.
And sociology is a mix.
Yes.
And so I always had, but management is not. Yes, there are a few people, there are some scholarly books, I don't mean textbooks, but scholarly books that are done in management, but management is almost totally, the reward system is based on refereed articles.
Yes.
And so I was in a domain that I knew was not going to reward me extrinsically for writing a scholarly book.
Yes.
On the other hand, I would reward myself by doing it, because the way I define what a scholar does is, one of the things a scholar does is write a scholarly book.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to do it. And when it came time to, I don't know. Am I going on too long here?
We have so many. I have so many questions. I think one thing, when you mentioned kind of what happened in the early '80s, the Hall book came out in '81. So there must
Mm-hmm.
have been something about that book that sparked you. I mean, and again, there's lots of names in the book that I know resonate with you, Niels, as well as me. Edgar Schein came up there as well. So that's kind
Yes.
of, there's this progression to Hall. And so would you tell us a little bit about what that reading was? And it's like, oh, I discovered some word in there that was really juicy. So I
Yep.
want to hear a little bit about that.
And it comes back to me. I still envision myself. I can't tell you a year. I'd have to look it up in my Vita of meeting presentations, because there's a real coincidence here. But I've got The Dance of Life with me, Edward Hall's primary book about time. And I'm on the plane headed for San Diego. And I'm reading Hall's book. And I get to his explanation of polychronicity.
Mhm.
And that was an aha moment.
Uh-huh.
That explains so much about me and about other people. And just, disclaimer here, free running, I am very monochronic.
Yeah.
And,
So that word.
and I know your viewers won't know what that means here, but just my wife is much more polychronic than I am. And she even made a comment once about my mother saying, "Oh, she's even worse than you are in terms of being monochronic."
Yes.
Because, yeah, monochronic and polychronic people, at least at the extremes, think the way the other person operates is not the way to do things.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm reading that, had that
aha.
aha moment. And then I had an advanced copy of the program for the Academy of Management meeting. And somehow, as I'm looking through the things, there's Edward Hall on the program.
Wow.
He's giving a presentation. And then talk about frustration. I couldn't go hear him in person because I was on the program in another session at exactly the same time. And so even the most polychronic person in the world can't deal with that. And so, but just, it's almost like it was meant to be somehow there.
Yes. But you met him still at the conference. You still met him.
No, I never met him there.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
That's a bummer.
Because it's a big meeting. It was a big meeting back then, and by the time I retired, it had really gotten huge.
I once went in Vancouver, and it was like
we were probably there at the same time, because I basically I went every year of my career to that until right at the end, and so yeah, I'm sure you and I were there at the same time.
Yeah, probably. By the way, I want to recommend another wonderful book about time by Norbert Elias. Is he well known to you? Norbert Elias, the sociologist.
The name seems vaguely familiar, but I couldn't tell you
He
why.
wrote this book about time, but it's only available in German, interestingly.
Okay.
Fantastic book. I think these two books, they are both amazing. Of course there are others like Time Watch by Barbara Adam, just an example. So there's so many. It's such a great topic. By the way, rereading your book today, it made me think of Isaac Asimov, the Foundation Cycle, which is very intensely. I'm watching it as a TV show right now.
Oh yes, my sons and I watch it too. My one son is an economist with the IMF, and he's in Washington, D.C. My other son lives here in Columbia, and he comes over usually on late Sunday afternoon, and then we do a FaceTime call with his brother in Washington, D.C., and then Nick counts us down, 3, 2, 1, start, and so we click it to begin. And we watch it simultaneously.
Hilarious.
And then we talk about, occasionally we'll stop it and make a comment or something. And then we just then turn it back on. And at the end, we talk about it some more.
That's fantastic. Yes.
Multiple things at the same time, pairing your attention, the conversation and the watching. Sounds
Yep.
like so that again is the basic idea. What is polychronicity? I mean, when I saw that, it seemed like, oh, he's just talking about task switching and multitasking, kind of. That's like the words that are there, but it's so much more. There's so much more nuance in what you talk about, and then the
Right.
definition. I'll read a little bit of the definition just for those who have not had the pleasure of reading the book yet.
Mhm.
Um, Polychronicity is the extent to which people prefer to be engaged in two or more tasks or events simultaneously, and are actually so engaged, the preference strongly implying the behavior and vice versa, and believe their preference is the best way to do things. So some people are on this other end of the continuum where that multitasking happens. But you mentioned, so that's your wife, right? She's doing all sorts of things at the same time. And then you mentioned yourself to be at that you are only very mildly polychronic. You almost talked about monochronic, kind of the sequential thing. So
Right.
at that definition of that, it goes so many other places. But yeah, so when you discovered that term and kind of thought about the continuum, what was the next place that you went? Because I mean, there's so many metaphors in the book that you go to. How did that progress from that basic aha moment?
Well, when I first, I don't think, I don't think I just jumped in and said, oh, I'm really going to do a lot of studies of polychronicity back
Mhm.
at that moment, because I'm just getting into temporal issues in general, time horizons and speed and punctuality and a whole bunch of things there. And I really didn't do much of anything empirical for a few years in terms of data gathering and so forth. Like I say, Bob Benhart and I worked on that major review article, but which got us in touch with a fellow named Joe McGrath at the University of Illinois, who was a social psychologist and who was interested in time, and particularly was interested in entrainment and did some very groundbreaking research, social psychological research on that. It turns out he was one of the reviewers on the first draft of our review article. And I still remember this. He didn't like that first draft at all. And I didn't know he was the reviewer at the time. I just knew that at the time, one of the reviewers is pretty negative about this, but he laid out exactly what he thought needed to be done to improve it. And so we revised the article. I mean, there was more than one reviewer, but we revised it, and he really liked it.
Mhm.
And in fact, he made this comment, because I've never had a comment like this before or since on an article, saying that was the most remarkable revision he'd ever seen. and I later, at least by telephone, had a few conversations with him about time and temporal matters. And he had attended a meeting of the International Society for the Study of Time one time. And so I guess I lost my train of thought here a little bit.
Maybe let me deviate you both. I would like to comment on something that I thought today about the book, and we may not agree. Ryan and I, we read the book separately, and we may not have the same opinion about the book either, or the chapters. But I fell in love with a few of your chapters in this book, especially. And the one about polychronicity, I didn't find it that compelling, because it's very nuanced and everything. It's wonderful, but I didn't find it as exciting as other chapters. And you just mentioned the topics. One of your chapters is about punctuality. The chapter is called "Seldom Early, Never Late." I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of writing, of business book writing, that I've ever read. I think it's truly remarkable, a great piece of literature, and in terms of content. And chapter 6, you call it convergence, but it's really about entrainment. You just mentioned
Entrainment, mm-hmm.
which is a remarkable thing. I think not so obvious. I had never heard the term before. Maybe that's my my bad, which is about people. It's, by the way, it's something that appears in the Foundation TV series as well. The alignment, so to speak, between different people in terms of temporality, or temporal perception and behavior, or rhythmicity, I think. Or,
yep.
Yes. Those are remarkable concepts, and I think the way you outline them, it's just, it's extraordinary. I think those chapters number 4 and number 6, they are outstanding. I noticed that today, rereading, all the chapters are beautiful, all are rich. You're a great storyteller, by the way.
Well, thank you.
And one thing I would like to highlight for people who might be interested in the book, it's written. You have the prose of a journalist in a positive sense. It's remarkably dense, as we already mentioned, but it's also beautiful. You tell so many beautiful stories. Today, I had to tell one detail, one bit from the, I think, very first chapter of the book to my client. How the different religions came to pick their sacred.
Oh my.
Judaism picked the Saturday, then the Christians had to pick another day, so they picked Sunday, and then Islam picked Friday. It's so. Right. It's also interesting so much about the history of the clock, and of course the German opening of the book is very amazing. That's so many amazing stories. But yes.
Oh, it was entrainment before the clock. It was a different kind of time that was happening.
Maybe we let Allen talk about that a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. So
you want to comment about entrainment maybe a little bit? How you feel about that topic today?
I think of all the temporal topics,
yes,
entrainment is the most important.
I love you.
And I say that because I think that's one of the fundamental processes in the whole universe.
Yes.
Just physical things,
yes.
Planetary orbits and all of that. It goes on, like I say, the physical universe, certainly the biological universe, which I think is probably the origin of the concept. And then, as McGrath and others have shown, it's a social phenomenon too. Yes. And this is what I saw in your white paper, the one Slave to the Rhythm.
Yes.
And I made some notes to myself here, and I hope I am pronouncing this correctly. Takt, T-A-K-T.
Yes, that's the German word for how do we call it, Ryan? How do we call it? How do you call it?
It is tempo. Tempo is how I. That's tempo
okay.
And groove.
Takt in German, yes, takt.
But you
which is like the metronome. Tak, tak, tak.
Yes. Okay. Tic tac.
Yes, it's similar.
But you say
the Leaners have it some way. They use takt in that other way, but yeah, tempo is I think how we've considered it.
And it's one of the major principles of your whole system. And you say it's temporal alignment of sequenced activities. That's entrainment.
Yes.
And
I didn't have the word when I wrote the paper, by the way.
Right.
I didn't have the word. So thank you for connecting the dots here. Yes.
And then you say the slowest step sets the tempo. Well, you're talking about tempo entrainment, how fast things are done or the pace at which work is done. And so and then you say that's tempo entrainment, and the fact that it's the slowest step sets the tempo. So the slowest step is the Zeitgeber,
which is a
word
word
for the entire system. Then,
okay, I don't speak German like both of you do. What does the Zeitgeber?
Time giver.
Time giver is the literal translation, and in entrainment, often it's not. Sometimes it is just two rhythms coming together, but often it's one rhythm is dominant and captures the other rhythm. And the rhythm that does the capturing is the Zeitgeber. And
you tell beautiful stories about that phenomenon as well, that there have been popes who were Zeitgebers.
Yes, popes who were Zeitgebers.
Right? You give a beautiful example from France. Yes. Mm-hmm.
and yeah, Charles V and his clock,
Yes.
the first public clock in Paris, and what was it, 1370, I think it was.
Yes.
And which I have seen in person.
Yes, I have to go there. I marked it today, so I have to go there. I have to see the place. Yeah.
And you can see it if you stand right in front of Notre Dame, the cathedral.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long way off,
Yeah.
but it's off. At least when my wife and I were there, this is kind of crazy. I got invited to speak at Fontainebleau.
Yes.
At INSEAD in Fontainebleau, which is not too far from Paris, and I was really flattered by that. And so my wife and I, they paid my way, and then we paid my wife's way to go with me. And after I was through giving the talk and things like that, we were back in Paris, and I remember they had 2 different colored bus tours that you could just get on and off and everything, and they had pre-recorded in French and in English. And at one point they said, and here's the oldest public clock in Paris. And I said, we got to see this. And went and saw it then that way.
Yes. And it was engineered, it was built by a German.
Yes. Heinrich von Vick or something like that. And then, but there's a little more on entrainment in your work. You said the entire company must swing to the same rhythm of customer demand.
Yes.
Well, that's phase entrainment. The rhythm of customer demand, and customer demand is the Zeitgeber. Then.
Oh, brilliant. Oh my goodness.
In that way.
Yes, yes.
And then just one last thing. All connected production processes in a line are timed around the longest duration process step. And so that's probably phase entrainment, but it can include some temporal entrainment too. And this makes the longest duration process step the Zeitgeber.
Yes.
So all of these topics bring into what really struck me about the book was the idea of how they all are these musical concepts, right? There's this tempo thing, who's in control, who's setting the tempo, how are we playing together? We were each playing the same thing at the same time. We're also playing, we're also listening. There's this sense of when you get into the groove, you are really into it. You get the sense of psychological flow. You have what in flow, and Csikszentmihalyi talks about it, is that you go into the sense of timelessness. So you're timeless, but you're also in tempo, you're in the groove, and the entrainment is this kind of agreement that you're having all the time in jazz. And sometimes we're playing behind the bit, we're playing behind the tempo, sometimes we're playing but we're back and forth. And that was just all of these, almost every chapter as I came back through, it was like, this is jazz. To me, it is very much about, again, of course it's about jazz for me, right? That really blew my mind about it. And I think there's also some bits that when we talk about entrainment, who's in control? And that there's like a hierarchy of that, but there's not really. It's very interesting, and I'm wondering how that topic of control and entrainment struck you, Niels, in terms of that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, well, control didn't come to my mind because it's really, this is a book very much about self-organization. The whole topic of time is really, I think, intimately related to self-organizing systems, and complexity in systems, living systems. Yes, Alan?
If I could make a comment, I think to combine kind of what Ryan and Niels, what you're saying, is my thought in a managerial context, the importance, you do have your choice of what you want the Zeitgeber to be. Now, sometimes it's just given. And if you choose the wrong one, that can be a problem. But
yes.
If you're consciously aware of what you're doing, then, excuse me, I'm going to get a little drink of water here.
And I can take over. Maybe maybe I yes. Well, you were fast, so please continue.
But no, that was a thought I had when I made my notes.
Yes.
Managerially, to some extent, somebody can choose what the Zeitgeber is going to be.
Yes.
And maybe that's going to need to be a group decision, or at least a group will need to accept that decision for it to work out, assuming the Zeitgeber is chosen wisely.
Yes, yes, and I also, that's something I found in your book. I cannot hint at the page right now or quote the exact line, but something that I think you're highlighting well in the book is also that there is a natural rhythm to things that we should use as the Zeitgeber, which might be a daily rhythm or whatever it is, in order not to make things break systems, let's say, or create artificial barriers to work and performance and happiness and whatever is related. Yes. Maybe I should read out the one of the.
I would like, where that for you, Niels? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think just to give people a bit of original quotes from the. I think I would like to read out this joke, Alan, that you added to one of the chapters, which is called "The Best of Times and the Worst of Times." So this is the story that apparently somebody told you directly. A patient was visiting a doctor to receive the results of several important tests. And the doctor began the conversation by saying, "I'm afraid I have some very bad news. The tests indicate that you have only 6 months left to live." The patient exclaimed, "That's terrible. Isn't there anything you can do?" The doctor replied, "I'm sorry, but your condition is something medical science has no cure for right now. However, I have one suggestion that might help." The patient looked up hopefully and asked, "What's that?" The doctor answered, "Move to Kansas." Puzzled, the patient inquired, "Why? How would that help?" The doctor explained, "You won't live any longer, but it will seem like forever." One of the funniest jokes I ever found in a business book. It's amazing, and so witty about time and perception of time and our existence in time. This joke came to you, right, Alan?
Yeah, I did not create the joke. I heard somebody tell it, and
Yes.
And thought that's too good to pass up.
Yes.
And as I said before we went on the air here too, there's a footnote that says residents of Kansas can probably adjust that joke
Yes.
to their preferences. So
Yes. We can all adjust that. We all have
right.
That's probably about some local rivalry.
Oh yeah, there's a rivalry that for your viewers, as I explained then.
Yes.
There's a major rivalry that goes back to the American Civil War in the 1860s between what went on in western Missouri and eastern Kansas. Like, among other things, Lawrence, Kansas, the home of the University of Kansas, was burnt to the ground back during that conflict. And,
yes. Okay, there's some juicy stories to tell about that, I think. Yes. It's wonderful.
So particularly when the University of Missouri plays the University of Kansas in a sport like basketball or football, it really comes out. That's a huge rivalry that still exists there. And I still remember seeing a sign at a Missouri basketball game when Kansas was the visiting team, and the sign just said, "Burn it down again," referring to when Lawrence got burned down.
Nice. Well,
I think it's maybe less funny, but the rivalry thing is also very interesting. What are the cultural distinctions that have this time dimension to them? And that there's also Purdue and Indiana. Again, I'm from Indiana.
Yep.
So that's the whole thing. Like,
that
Purdue is it's a huge thing. Purdue is the engineering school. IU is the music school. It's the arts school. So they would have this very, you would think, kind of polychronistic kind of view of time. And this, we're loose in it. We're doing all these things at the same time. It might seem like chaos to someone who's from Purdue thinking, I'm an engineering kind of, I want to have this structured time, very, very metronomic kind of view. And then the folks on the other side of the bit are more free. So again, very interesting that the cultural construction of time.
It shines through, Ellen. It shines through in the book that you are very interested in culture.
Oh, yes. Part of that just comes probably from the anthropology things, but just well, and one of the reasons that interest intersects so well with my interest in time is so much of our temporal behavior, our temporal preferences, our temporal values, we don't even know we're carrying them around.
Yes.
Because it comes from the deepest parts of culture, the parts we carry it unconsciously, and we're not even aware that we've learned these things.
Yes.
We haven't learned that, if you got an appointment, you better be there within a minute or two of when the appointment is.
Yes.
That would be kind of at least an old style American view. I think that's loosened up some over my lifetime. But I still remember a student in one of my MBA classes who was from Dominica. And I made a reference to something. I said, there's something called island time. And he just started laughing because he knew all about it, much more loose, let's say, or flexible in terms of when things get done and how fast they get done and things like that. But I think culture is critical in general in an organization, but for my interest in time, it was absolutely fundamental because that's where a lot of the action is going on. It's not
today.
And until somebody like Edward Hall writes about polychronicity and a guy on an airplane flying to San Diego goes, aha, that's what's going on. Like I say, that's where so much of it is. And or I use the example, we haven't mentioned much about temporal depth here.
Yeah.
But just the striking differences in Americans burying time capsules. I think we still do this occasionally, but that used to be a big thing to do. And then specifying how far into the future people had to wait before they'd open them. And my example, in America, it's 100 years or less. And I've discovered 2 or 3 of them in Columbia, Missouri, that were one was 100, I think, and the other was 50 years or 25 years or so.
Okay.
And then the one in Japan was something like 10,000 years. And just that's culture.
Yes.
Yes. And again, nobody in Japan and nobody in the United States learned in junior high school, hey, when you bury a time capsule, you better say you wait 10,000 years before people should open it.
Yeah, that's cool.
That learning went on unconsciously.
Yes, yes.
And that's where polychronicity resides, is at that deep, basic, Edward Schein calls it basic underlying assumptions.
Yes.
But before I forget, Ryan, why I smiled way back at the beginning of our conversation was I've given at professional meetings, and of course I taught time in the big introductory management class and in PhD seminars and my MBA classes and everything, but particularly when I'm dealing with a general audience. I've discovered if I start early in the talk with polychronicity, I never get off that topic because around the room, people are so fascinated with that. There's question after question and wanting to talk about it and learn more. I never get to the other topics.
Yes.
So if you really want to get to if you're giving a talk and you really want to get to the other time topics, you better do at least some of them before you get to polychronicity. Because the audience will not let you leave polychronicity.
Yes, it's fascinating because it resonates with us on a personal level as well.
Yes,
with houses and so on. It's a topic. It's a big topic, right?
But even as much of an epiphany as learning about polychronicity is for me and so many other people, I still think the most important time variable is entrainment.
Yes.
So if you had to ask me to pick it's most important because it's most universal.
Yes.
And entrainment goes on with everything.
Yes.
I won't keep.
I believe that's the first, and the second for me would be punctuality.
I knew it. I knew it.
Because that's why. Did I do something wrong, Ryan?
No. That's what I predicted would be your next favorite topic.
Because it's intimately related to the work. You've seen 2 of our research papers, Alan. They have a lot to. They are intimately related to entrainment and to punctuality. This idea of be punctual, let capacity float or swing. Yes, that means punctuality is and in combination with the right Zeitgeber, punctuality is it's the boss, so to speak, in proper time orientation at work. And I think that chapter it's extremely rich as well.
And if I may say too, there may be a cultural linkage here too, because you're German.
Yes,
and Germany is famous for its emphasis on punctuality.
Yes, there's currently a crisis. Not sure if you have heard about it.
No,
the German railways has over the last 5 or 10 years has become extremely sloppy, and it leads to a kind of soul searching and identity crisis in Germany. It's not a joke. We are troubled by that our German railways are not punctual anymore. It's fair to say they're not punctual anymore, and it's a mess for us. It feels personal, very personal.
Well, if I could mention, I have a good friend, and he and I go to the gym to do about 20 minutes of exercises with various weight machines. Given our ages, this is a good thing to do. And we used to meet there, and I said, why don't I just pick you up? Because I don't like waiting around. And so his place is more or less on my way to the gym anyway. Yes. So I pick him up and I say, and usually it's 2:00 in the afternoon on the 2 days we go. And I remember one day a few weeks ago, he said, you're like a German train. You get here at 2:00.
Yes, we used to say that, but today we kind of stopped.
We can't anymore.
We relate to Swiss trains now.
Okay.
Like a Swiss train, because they are still punctual, but German trains not anymore. It's a crisis, let's say. I hope we will overcome this. But it goes. You were totally right.
It's a little bit
identity thing.
Like I mentioned in the book, the siesta going away in Spain.
Yes. Fabulous story, fabulous observation. I think the way you're telling it, that you personally went there and became sad. It's in the last parts of the book. It tells a lot about yourself, I think.
Okay.
This episode, and about your appreciation for cultural differences and so on, right?
Yes.
Didn't you think so, Ryan?
Oh, absolutely.
Lovely.
Absolutely. I think also to kind of poke at the German side of this as well. The opening story in the All Times Are Not the Same chapter, it was a foreboding hour early in the 20th century, that in the World War, there was this plan that they had to execute. And then, we didn't at some point realize, well, this wasn't the plan to go on, so many, I'm not going to read the whole quote, but it came to that would stick to the plan, even though that there was this knowledge that the plan was not going to work, So it was, I thought it's kind of a damning of the German behavior in World War I. So
I wouldn't say so. I just say it's a remarkable opening story for the book, and about our perception of time and how it forces reality upon us, right? Or reality of time is forced upon us, and we have to be conscious of our mental models about time, right? Why did you decide to open the book with it, Alan? A beautiful story.
Because I thought, well, my argument with that point is that decision that the Kaiser ultimately made there to go, he got talked into it by, I think von Moltke was the name of the chief of the German General Staff. He was the one who argued, no, that's not changed the plan. And the Kaiser
cannot change the plan. Yes.
Yes, we cannot change it. once decided, you can't change it. And
we've set the budget.
yes, and I mean, you don't have to be a military historian to realize the French and the British barely held the Germans off. The Germans came that close there, and if they didn't have a third of their army or whatever it was attacking Russia at the same time, they had to have won just by force of numbers. And so the fact that they didn't, that's one of the key bifurcation points of the 20th century. Everything stems from who won World War I.
Yes.
And who won World War I stems from that decision.
And also, I mean, the history of America comes to the forefront at that time as well, and the involvement of America in the world arena is crucial. Exactly. So yes, I think it's a beautiful way to start your book. You say something like this day in which von Moltke and the Kaiser had this conversation marks the true beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's very interesting observation. Very, very to the point.
I began the book with it, hoping that would grab people. And
absolutely.
This is important stuff.
Yes. The other quote, as we're here, it kind of ties into it. That like God is the perfect clockmaker, and this goes back. Management doesn't really go back 250 years. It really goes back 750 years. So when the idea of mechanical time and this mechanistic view of how time passes, it changed how people were treated and how people were, dare I say, managed at that time. So again, another beautiful way to bring a metaphor. It's like it really hit home. God's a clockmaker.
And then Daniel Boorstin, the author of The Discoverers, who I cite on this point, but kind of from his thinking, he says back in Rome, punctuality was not valued because nobody could tell whether you were on time or not.
Yeah.
The best they had was sundials, and okay, you couldn't even say precisely when the next hour began or so with that. Yeah.
Yes,
you could approximate it, but
you introduce vocabulary here in the book. You introduce vocabulary when you talk about Rome and the lack of possibility of creating punctuality. You talk of epochal time.
Oh yes.
And the opposite, which we acquired, the opposite possibility of dealing with time by having mechanical watches or clocks. You call that fungible time, I think.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is a word that you coined. So it's one of the beautiful things in your book, I think, is that it shines through that you are a truly independent thinker. You do not hesitate to cite other authors and legends, Seneca, philosophers, from all kinds of times. And then you pick a different word because you consider it inappropriate or inadequate to use the other words, the other existing terms, which are too sloppy in your mind, I think. So,
and I would say maybe I coined the use of fungible to talk about times, but of course that comes from, well, it's a general word, but it's mainly used in finance to talk about money and things like that, where you can interchange $1 for another. $1 is the same as any other, and that's fungible time. 1 minute's the same as any other.
And I've also heard fungible being discussed in terms of people, like human beings being treated as fungible resources, to be exchanged. I mean, it gets pretty dark.
Fungible parts.
Yeah. Which is
it has a dark side, right? That's what you wanted to indicate by picking this term, that that perception or that notion of time has a dark side.
Well, or just an empty side.
Yes, very nice. Yes.
A dead side and a live side, right? A blue side and a red side, if we want to talk about that. I think the other thing I would be remiss if we didn't bring it in was the story about your grandson, Nick, at the end.
Our son, Nick.
or son Nick, I'm sorry, it's like, why did I think grandson? That there was this, you witnessed his play, and that brought something up in you. And I'd love to hear that you talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, the story Ryan is mentioning here, it's towards the end of the book where I discuss about making times, and I just mentioned is in the discussion the whole issue of play and what play is, and the particular story was, I think my son must have been either last year of elementary or first year of junior high or something, and I was at the office. And my wife was at work too, and so just Nick was there by himself, and it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So he got home from school, and I thought, well, I better check in on him, see what's going on and everything. And just I asked him, what are you doing? And he said, or I was playing, and just that I've always remembered him saying that. Because particularly given his age, and as I say in the book, I never heard him use that sentence again. I was playing.
Yes.
Because somehow, at least in American society, and maybe this is more general in many societies, that, oops, I need a little more water here.
Cliffhanger.
It's this getting lost in play, right?
Right. And I quote sociologist Peter Berger as saying, joy is play's intention. And so if you think of as adults, what kinds of forms of things that look like play do we do? And organized sports. And I don't mean the college or professional level or anything like that, but just leagues and all of that. There's still rules and referees, and it's scheduled and the whole bit. And why are people doing this? Well, many people just enjoy doing it. The closest to that would be, let's say, like I remember being involved in pickup basketball games at the lunch hour or so. There are rules of basketball, but they're adjusted to when you're just doing it yourself that way. And you're not doing it to win a prize or to win money or to win a championship or anything. At most, you want to win so you can keep the court and keep on playing. But other than that, so much is just bureaucratic and things. How much of it is just for pure joy, which is the play of a child? And that's kind of a shame that that's kind of frowned on. If you're doing something just for the fun of it,
to lose yourself in it.
This connects it all together. I mean, we talk about joy in work, joy at work, getting the sense of the day's work is done and this accomplishment, that can be joyful. And also the sense of, in the music way, when we go to play as jazz musicians, it's professional, but you got to play, you're playing for joy. This feeling of joy, this timelessness, this loving bit. Playing is serious business, but it is also joyful, and that connects everything together. So, I mean, wow! And the whole book also is this symphony of systems thinking, as far as I can see, because everything connects together. The relationships between all the concepts are just they're so delightful and delicious there. So that just struck me deeply. So,
but did I explain enough about when my son said that, or?
Oh yeah, I think
okay.
Yes, totally.
I got it. I just had to have something there. So, Allen, as we approach this moment, is there anything you wanted to bring to our audience, or that you wanted to bring forth that you have not yet had the chance to do?
Yes, that we might have missed. You also said that you would have to reread the book for this session. Something that struck you that you want to mention.
I did it kind of roughly a chapter a day.
Oh yeah. You read it page by page, the whole book.
Oh yeah. Since
well, more than 20 years have passed since the publication, right? 23 years.
Right. And I did use the book. I used the book in a couple of different classes. I taught a doctoral seminar on organization theory, and I just thought the ethics of the thing, I just bought copies of the book and gave, it's a small class of 6 to 10 people or so in each version. So I just bought copies of the book and gave it to them.
Okay. Nice.
In an undergraduate class that was a little larger, my university has a rule that if you use one of your own books in a class, you have to donate the royalties to some charity.
Okay.
And so I think I only used it in this undergraduate class, which is for seniors, a management skills kind of class. And I made a big deal about, I don't even remember what charity I gave it to, but I brought it in, and then before I sent the check in, I even showed him the check but these were back in the days of overhead projectors, and showed everybody this check, and I calculated, and of course I sent more than the amount of whatever the modest royalties would have been on the book. Yes. And let's see, is there anything from the book that I would like to? Oh, you mentioned rereading it. Let me finish my thought on that. And so the last doctoral seminar I taught was, I think, the fall semester of 2010. And then I retired right at the end of summer 2012. And then I think I went a decade without rereading the book.
Yes.
And decided I should. And I think just for the heck of it, I reread it, I think this spring. And then when I got your invitation, Niels, I thought I better really reread it and really pay attention this time. And I think it was kind of different reads all three of those times.
Yes.
But and I would say about the book, on the academic side of my career, I regard that as by far the thing I am most proud of, and my greatest academic achievement.
Wow.
Now I did have an administrative side to my career, and the director of our MBA program at the time, he and it was a 50-50 collaboration, a wonderful collaboration. He had a marketing background. I had the managerial kind of stuff, and they complemented each other so well. Our dean asked us to create an executive MBA program in 1 year, and we did it. And that is unheard of and almost unbelievable to us that we did it. But on the administrative side, that was my greatest achievement. But as an academic, this book is the thing I'm most proud of, and am really glad I did it. So to finish that train of thought there about rereading it and things, Ryan, you asked me, are there any things from the book that I'd like to bring out or so forth? Let's see. I have about 2 or 3 pages on time management, and a comment there is, and I think of the title of the book, The Human Organization of Time.
Yes.
I hope people, when they read that, read at least the subtitle, Temporal Realities and Experience, that they don't immediately think, oh, this is another book on time management.
That was a risk at the time. I mean, time management was a big thing in the 1980s and 90s, especially. I think it was a it was a fad.
And all kinds of training programs and everything. And
it was one of the biggest fads, right?
I'm sorry.
It was one of the biggest fads internationally.
Yep.
Stephen Covey, David Allen, the whole bit.
Yes. Yep. And a bunch of others, some of whom are cited in the book.
Yeah.
And like I say, rereading, I thought I had just part of 1 page on time management. There's actually 4 or 5 pages on it. And it's kind of critical on that. And I think, there's been one solid piece of research on time management, and does it work the way all of that fad claimed that at work. And basically, and ironically, the research was conducted by a colleague of mine over at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And what she found was, no, it didn't seem to increase people's productivity or anything like that. But I think I would argue equally important, doing the time management stuff reduced people's stress, increased how satisfied they were with their job, things like that. And that's no mean accomplishment. So doing a to-do list, you might not really get any more done or do it any better, but you feel more in control probably by doing that, and your workday is not as stressful. And the other comment I would make on time management,
yes.
If either of you or any of the viewers of this were asked to talk about time management, here's the advice I'd give you.
Okay.
It's kind of as I say in the book. Well, the traditional stuff goes back to two core principles. One is know your goals and set them if you don't have any, and then use those goals to set your priorities for the tasks that you might engage in. You know, that's everything else is a bunch of tactics.
Yes.
But those are the two fundamentals, and that's easy enough to teach. And then I would say change gears and go to polychronicity. And talk about people, how they engage the world. And part of that is how they do their work, and explain what polychronicity is. It's a continuum from I want to do one thing at a time. Don't bother me with anything else. Let me do that one thing until I get it done. And then I'm going to go on to task number 2. At the other extreme is I'm going to bounce back and forth between 7 or 8 things today. And some people maybe more, that might be extreme. Yes. Some people maybe less. Yes. And then there's all kinds of points in between, and explain that when people do things differently than you, they're not doing them to irritate you or anything. And it doesn't mean their way is invalid, that there may be benefits from that way that you don't get from yours, and vice versa.
Yes, I think
that's what I would say. If you're asked to talk about time management, do that.
Yeah, which is, I think you outlined this well in the book as well, is why time management as a one-size-fits-all practice cannot serve everybody, and it doesn't serve all the tasks, because some tasks require polychronicity or monochronicity, right? So, or they lean to one of the two sides.
And I would, and then a good principle, after you've explained polychronicity, if you're in such an environment, is to say, and you are not necessarily locked into what I'd call your free running mode of wherever you are on that continuum. You can adjust to some extent, at least. And what you can try to do is adjust to the demands of the situation. And I discovered that when I became chair of my management department, particularly. And then, as this says in the book, researchers have found management is a polychronic task. It is not. I'm
trying to find that quote. I couldn't find it. Did it right there.
It's in there someplace. Yeah. And so I had to adjust myself to be somewhat more, to just say, this is the job I'm in now, and I better be able to deal with these multiple things, and many of which just pop up out of nowhere that I need to deal with. And, I heard a quote one time, and it helped me on that. Somebody knocks on my door and says, "Can I come in? I need something I need to talk to you about." Realize that's your job coming into your office. That's not an interruption. That's your job coming in. And I think that's a helpful way to think of it. I don't say that in the book, but I'll give you another example. Writing this book, of course, I'd never written a book, and none of my colleagues, a couple of colleagues had done textbooks, but there weren't a lot of role models within the College of Business for how to do this. just at the nitty-gritty level, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah.
And so parts of that book have been written as I tried to experiment at every part of the 24-hour day. Believe it or not, part of that was written at 3 a.m. Not very much of it, but part of the first draft of that was written as I tried different things out. And one thing I discovered was in trying things out, I could not write this at the office.
Yeah.
And this was before I became chairman even. I could not write it at the office. And certainly after the book and I got into the chairman's role, I couldn't write articles at the office. Writing is a task that requires a monochronic approach while you're actively clicking on the keyboard these days. You can't deal with people coming in or that sort of,
as we call it.
And right? You want to know what I fell upon finally is the way 80 to 90% of that book was written, the first draft of it. Fortunately, I'd won a research award in the College of Business where I was, which gave me a reduction in teaching load. And just the way it worked out was that freed up some time. And so what I set for myself was every day I will get up, get myself together, eat breakfast, and then between 8:30 and 9, I will sit down in my home office and I will write. And I will continue writing until I have produced 2 double-spaced pages of text. And that was usually sometime between 11 and 11:30 that I did that. And I did that every day for a year.
Okay.
Or for at least 10 or 11 months.
Yes.
The only day I made an exception and didn't write was Christmas Day. Every other day, I was more disciplined than I was for any other task in my life that I've ever done. And part of that was because of the deadline. Stanford University Press didn't want me to take forever on this. And I don't know if they gave me a specific day, but I knew this had to move along. And that was, and it worked. Wow. I know that sounds very robot-like, but for me, that's how it got done.
By the way, pages on deadlines in the book as well, on the meaning of deadlines.
Oh, yes.
That's part of the punctuality chapter.
Yes, there's a tight relationship between the two.
Let me try a sum up of. Oh, but you may add something before.
Well, I was just on the writing thing that just brought something. First of all, the advice you have given me, Niels, about writing, that's kind of the way it goes. It goes for you, and that focus is there. I also heard that in some of the other works, like Somerset Maugham talks about the same. Asimov talks about the same thing. Dickens talked about the same thing. Steve Pressfield talked about that same thing. Put your butt in the seat and write. Good, bad, whatever. Just write. You get better by writing, like you get better at talking by talking. That was what came up with me. So, Niels, please.
Let me try to make a repeat a few remarks about the book, The Human Organization of Time by Allen Bluedorn, subtitle Temporal Realities and Experience. I said this in the previous online review, the video review. The power, I think, of this book is that it doesn't try to be practical. It is not a time management book or other shallow stuff. This is a real thing. This is Allen, you are a writer and author who manages to combine academic discipline and rigor with beautiful prose, with neat storytelling, amazing historical insight, I think, and weaving the stories together. I think it's, in a way, a didactic book to make us conscious about the human organization of time and how we are subject to time and how we make it work and what it means socially in groups and societies and so on and throughout history. It's a powerful book, beautiful prose, so rich, so inspiring. So I recommend everyone to read this book, published, as you mentioned, Allen, by Stanford University Press. Yes, amazing book. Thank you for discussing it with us.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I'm always delighted to talk about it.
And we might get back to it at a certain point, I feel. Yes. Ryan, you want to say some
Oh,
final?
just like you, that say the one thing that really about this time that we have spent together was just the level of excitement, Alan, that you have about this topic, and the joy in it is so comes out. And I love be jamming with you on this. So it was fantastic. So.
Well, thank you. And I've been told, and it's Robert Burns, the Scottish poet, said, "If only God would give us the gift to see ourselves as others see us." And so I never know how I come across. So I'm going to be very interested to watch the recording of this. But I've been told that in front of a class, I have a totally different personality. One that is, well, not just, I think the excitement and so forth that I bring to it, because I did a workshop on teaching for the other faculty in the College of Business, like about 2 or 3 weeks before my last day on the clock, so to speak. And I was told afterwards by my best friend, the fellow I go to the gym with, he said he'd never seen me like that. I was so excited, apparently, about what I was presenting to the folks that, and again, it's hard to see yourself doing it. It just feels like you. I had a hunch I was different in front of a large group, but I had no idea.
I think for those who are listening and for future or present readers of your book, I think your personality shines through in the book as well. So, yeah, it's a marvelous feat. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. And those of you out there in the Betaverse and beyond who you're inviting you in, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. Yeah. And we will see you on the next episode of BetaCodex Live. Bye, everybody. We'll see you soon. Make time for us.